and welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. And on today's episode, I'm very excited to be talking to Victoria Aveyard about the last of the series, but the whole series. Oh my god! And we were just saying when we were building the wall this morning, how stunning they all look together.
Yes.
And it gives me those kind of classic fantasy vibes, which
I know. I have a secret fantasy that we'll get to do either like a jacket or some sort of redesign where we do those classic 70s, 80s illustrated covers, because I think it would really
like
suit
David
the series.
Gemmell, like
yes. So I'm nudging. I'm just putting it into the universe. I hope someone does that.
Oh my god! Well, you could do like the either anniversary jackets or like they did for Jay Kristoff with the tour jacket.
Yeah.
That was quite rock and roll.
I think that'd be great.
So, yeah, you deserve it. So we have to, as we said off camera, there's going to be some minor spoilers. But what a way to start a series where all the heroes die.
Yes, and I totally hear when everyone says, "Oh, that prologue was a bit of a slog to get through," and it was sort of like, I wanted to have that misdirect. If you get through the prologue, you really understand what I'm doing with this series, and I get that it turned off people, but I get so many messages of, there were so many names and I was so overwhelmed, and then it was immediately, you don't have to worry about any of those people, because I wanted to have that moment of you think, okay, I have to get invested. She's really emphasizing these things. This is going to be very important, so that when it isn't, it's that much more of a, oh my god, shock. Because I went into this series knowing that idea of the B team of saving the world was going to be the core of it, and so I wanted.
Now,
if there's drilling going on, it's not us.
There is drilling going on. We may try and edit around it, or maybe start we'll figure out.
I know. So knowing that I wanted this book series to be about the B team, I know I had to show a little bit of the A team. I had to show the sort of Fellowship of the Ring completely failing, so that we know we're jumping off from a different point. And the tone of the series is going to be a little bit different than what you might expect from a classic fantasy quest, while also honoring a lot of the tropes while subverting them as best we could.
Because I think we're all kind of used to maybe killing one or two characters off. But I remember when I was reading it, and I started to make notes on the characters, and I was saying, okay, they're coming from here, they're doing this, and it was just rip that. None of that matters. Yes. But it was quite a fresh way of doing it, like you said, like it really just kind of makes you think, okay.
Yeah. I listened to Hell's Bells by AC/DC on repeat while writing that chapter. So that moment when the bells start tolling is like in the song, and it really worked for me. And I was, if there was ever a screen adaptation of this, I imagine that would be the opening credits. Is the moment you start seeing them all start to die, the credits start.
Yes.
And you have the moving through the massacre as it's going on.
That would be
We're manifesting.
That would be too good. So we have to talk about the I suppose the ragtag bunch of characters that after all the heroes have gone. How did you keep track of all those characters? Did they all kind of come before the world? I.e., were they kind of like...
A little bit of both, but it was very informed by archetypes. And I also went into this almost thinking about, in a video game where you're sort of choosing your class of character and then building from there. I don't play Dungeons and Dragons. Which a lot of, I know, and I think I'd love it, but I also think I'd be a really annoying dungeon master, and I'd be very strict with my group, and that's why I don't think I've been invited. But a lot of people say, that I was surprised you don't play Dungeons and Dragons, because this very much speaks to that idea. I started with, here's the shape of each person. Here's sort of the hole they're filling in that classic fantasy pantheon. And then how do we not necessarily make them different, but make them believable? So when we have a character like Corayne, who's the chosen one, the easy way to subvert that and the easy way to make that palatable is to have her be a chosen one who doesn't believe she's a chosen one, who is also using the idea of a chosen one to get what she wants, of like, I want to leave, I want to see the world, and I have this thing inside of me that wants to go, and this is my way to do it. And I don't quite believe the world needs saving, until she's very clearly shown it does, and it's you. Or you have Democrion, who I love the trope of the immortals who are detached from society and a little bit different. And I approached it not so much as like, oh, it's an elf and they live these long lives and they're so ethereal and beautiful and kind of float through the world. I approached it more of like a Vulcan or an alien and someone who does not understand the human society side of things, because I think that is realistically what you would look at if we did live in a world where people who lived for thousands of years also existed and existed separated. So I wanted to have those moments of him going into like a market and being like, why is everyone looking at me? How does money work? Those sort of things.
Yeah. And funny you should say about the kind of, I suppose, the gaming aspect. So I last night I was playing Unicorn Overlord, which is like a new JRPG, and you have the different classes and stuff, and it really made me think of you. So I just finished Fate Breaker, and then I was just like, oh my, I can see kind of, you know, the way they would all kind of work together. Like it's so,
So for me, the game that was really the touchdown, or the series, was Elder Scrolls. Yeah. Anyone who has played Oblivion is like, oh, that's where the spindles are coming from, is the Oblivion gates. And I grew up playing Morrowind is what I started with. And then Skyrim specifically was also very inspirational here, even in terms of, you know, how do I get into the mood of this? And I'm a very tentative player. I am always a stealth player. I am always, you know, shooting from afar in secret in a corner where you can't see me. And getting to go into a game like that where, you know, today I'm going to ride my horse and I'm going to shoot some deer and I'm going to gather my leather and I'm going to go sell it at the marketplace is very nice for me.
Yeah. It's so damn cozy, but
that's the thing. I love cozy gaming. I don't write cozy.
Yeah.
I like danger in a world that is completely under my control.
There is cozy aspects, like the tea aspect.
Yes,
and stuff,
I did love including the tea. So Andrew, our sort of squire character, is always like, well, let me make you some tea. And part of that was his characterization, and part of that was world building. And I wanted to indicate that there was a much larger world and much larger trade system. So just being able to tell that through tea and what ingredients he's using was really cool.
Yeah. It's very anything kind of anything tea, coffee, or like food related fancy is just
I'm always looking for those little pieces of world building that are small and quick but do a lot of heavy lifting.
Yes, that definitely comes across. You can you should do like a brand of tea.
that would have been so good for like a book box or a pre-order gift.
There's a I forgot the name.
Wow, we have that idea now.
I know. God damn it. There's a US brand. I was looking for a present for a friend's birthday, and they do themed tea bags, and they're based off different kind of fancy like tropes.
Great. Well, I'm here.
To totally do this. So the idea of, now this I found quite interesting, was obviously with your other series, there was a bit more, I suppose, romance was a bit more kind of front and center. In here, it doesn't start off with much more kind of, I suppose, the found family thing, which is great. But the romance between our two big bads is quite hot.
Yeah. So I went into this knowing that was the direction I wanted to go in, partially because coming from Red Queen, it was fainted at, but never followed through on because it didn't fit the characters. Yeah. There was never going to be a character of Mare as she was presented and a character of Maven as he was presented where that was going to be a viable relationship across the series. And I had a lot of readers who wanted it to happen. So I'm like, there's definitely a want here for a proper villain romance. And I love those. So I went into this one knowing I am going to go there with this particular set of characters. And I was really excited about that. But yeah, so I would never advertise the series as being a major romance situation or a romantic-y situation, but the seeds are there, especially from book one, and they bloom over the course of the series. I'm a slow burn girl. I love the tension and the yearning and especially characters who truly start out disliking each other and over the course of the series come together.
I did see a book review from a reviewer who said he wasn't sure who he wanted to win, which I was just like, Yeah.
I find that to be such a huge compliment too. My favorite villains are the ones where you kind of look at them sideways and think, you're not going about this in the correct way, but you do kind of have a point.
Mm-hmm.
And while I wouldn't say Terriston has a point in wanting to control the world, we understand where he's coming from of this whole, I've been promised something and had it taken away from me before I even had a say in it, and now I'm coming for it and no one can tell me no.
Mm-hmm. And
then also Erida being like, I have been put into this corner where I am unprotected and I'm going to do everything I can to hold on to myself. And sort of tracking that journey was really, really cool.
Yeah. Knowing
I was coming from a place of like, they both have their reasons versus just the mustache twirling.
Yes.
And then knowing, I don't know who I'm rooting for to win. When one side is like, I'm literally going to destroy the world. Okay, I've done some really good characters there.
Yes. And there is, I suppose, an element of kind of Cersei-esque to the character, but there's almost, she's not quite sure what to do with that anger.
Yes.
And that it's very kind of, it's just bubbling away.
Yes.
And,
I really like, a lot of people have described her as sort of a girl boss. Girl bossing her way into the sun, sometimes quite literally.
Yeah. got some very good kind of examples of female rage and stuff, which does get you kind of riled up.
And I very much saw Erida as the foil to Corayne, in that both of them were sort of put on this path to destiny and choosing how they were going to deal with it. And one deals with it in one way, and one deals with it in a very different way.
Very, very positive. So, who would you say has been your favourite character to write, and has it changed as the trilogy progressed?
It depends on what kind of mood you're in, because sometimes there are moods where you're like really inclined to write a certain character. Besides Corayne, who I think I know the best character-wise, but sometimes you're like, I don't want to write the hero.
Yeah.
I think Sarasa is probably my favorite because she is a Greek chorus in a way, and I can get in those commentaries and those jabs at certain fantasy tropes through her, and have her call out moments of, why are we being the heroes here? We need to do this, this, and this to survive so that we can be heroes later, but that doesn't mean like we're going to be the moral compass for the rest of the series kind of thing. I loved having those moments of like, of course we have to kill this person, they've seen our faces, like why are we leaving him alive? So that was always fun. And then just having her snarky sort of bitchy id. In Red Queen, Evangeline also kind of scratched that itch as well for me.
Yeah, we've all got that friend.
I know. And Andrew was the hardest in Realmbreaker because he's like, his moral compass points true north. He's like a capital G good character. And those characters I find are the hardest to make interesting to an audience, because morally gray people are naturally going to make different choices and do things that we necessarily wouldn't do but want to do, so they are just going to be more engaging. So figuring out ways to make good characters engaging and interesting, even though you kind of know they're going to make the right choice, you still have to figure out ways to make that fun for an audience. And so he made me work the hardest.
Now, coming back to the idea of kind of, I suppose, more portal fantasy, because that's definitely kind of one of those tropes. I think a lot of us kind of grew up reading those portal fantasies. It's almost kind of, it's kind of turned that a little bit on its head, the ideas of the portal fantasy. Did you kind of grow up reading portal fantasies, and what are your favourites that you remember from your childhood?
So, besides Elder Scrolls Oblivion being a big inspiration for the Spindles and this idea of portals to other worlds and pulling things out of it to control this world, I remember, and we go to a place in the end of Fatebreaker that was directly inspired by The Magician's Nephew, this first Chronicles of Narnia book by C.S. Lewis, and there is a forest with all of these pools, and each pool leads to a different world. And in this one I have a forest of spindles. And it is directly related to that image. And I remember I read growing up, we had the illustrated Chronicles of Narnia, the big books, and there were these pictures of that world, and that always stuck with me, of this perfect forest with the ponds and the doorways. And I got to bring that back in here.
And why do you think there's classics like, obviously, like Narnia and Lord of the Rings and stuff, that are still on so many bookshelves
Mm-hmm.
today? What do you think makes them kind of stand the test of time?
I think we all, and by all I mean those of us who grew up a little maladjusted and disconnected, we were all looking for worlds where we fit, or worlds where we could at least escape. And so not just portal fantasy, but you know, that idea that you could open a door and step into another world and be somebody entirely different is always very attractive. And immersive worlds are never going to go away. I don't think we're ever going to reach a point where our tastes shift from wanting to fall into a story and be totally taken out of ourselves.
Yeah. And definitely it's now, like I've mentioned this a few times on the channel, it's almost like the geeks will inherit the earth now. The things we were reading.
I know.
Everyone's reading.
I know. And I love that, but I do totally understand being like, I was tortured for liking this as a kid, and now it's okay. And so we kind of, it's almost like a hazing thing. So we are the generation that can say, no, it is okay to like these things, and it's okay to share them.
Yes. Yeah. Don't hide away your hide away your books and stuff like that. So now with the end of the trilogy, what's next?
Well, one of my editors is in the room. And I'm currently working on a proposal for a potentially adult book, which is brand new territory for me, both working on a proposal, because I've either sold something on a pitch or sold an entire book. So doing something in the middle is new for me. And then an adult book entirely is also new for me, even though I know in the UK, Realmbreaker is shelved more adult and is considered way more crossover. In the US, it's YA. The intent was always crossover. So going full tilt into adult is interesting. I also had, as I was creating that proposal, it's a story with multiple things in it, and one of the things I realized I have to pull out because it's its own thing.
Oh.
And so now I'm like, oh shit, is that the thing? And then behind that, I know I have a YA duology that I'm really excited to get to. And that is not fully formed, but really solid in my head.
Interesting then. So how do you think your writing process differ from your first series to this series? Because as you mentioned, obviously in the UK these are kind of more shouting adult, and I think not the Red Queen like it still feels quite adult in some of its themes, but this definitely feels like a bit more.
Yes.
So yeah,
I don't think process wise the big change for me has been understanding the industry more and the parts of my job that you don't quite realize are there until you are a published author. So slotting into schedules and deadlines and marketing and publicity and realizing all of those things have to be happening while you are also just writing the book. That has definitely shifted some of my brain power. You know, the first book you write or the first book you sell is always going to be the one that's written in a vacuum without any of those other things. So book 2, a lot of us will say book 2 is always our hardest book or our worst book, because book 2 is the first one you write with the weight of all the other pieces of the job that you didn't know were there. So my process has now been just more knowing how I have to navigate the world of traditional publishing. But I am someone who really likes schedules and likes deadlines, and I need those elements of structure to help me forward, because otherwise I would just be like staring at the walls, kind of la la la. But knowing this is the date you need to turn in your first draft. Yes. This is the date that we need to be into copy edits by, and this is the date we will publish. And if these things change, that changes. I love it.
Because I have noticed, like, especially from your social media, you seem like so organized. Like,
thank you.
it's amazing to
have
watch.
Lists.
It's just like, wow.
I have lists everywhere. I have lists on my phone. I have lists, like paper lists. I'm always checking. I'm such a teacher's pet. I need the check. I need the sticker. I need you to accomplish this thing today. Because with writing books, it's really hard on a day-to-day level to feel like you're moving forward. And only when you look back and say, okay, I actually did all of these things, do you get that, like, okay, I am doing something, I am not doing nothing, or doing nothing. Yeah.
It's very, I was watching your one the other day, and I messaged my friend Alwyn just to say, how is she this organised that you had like 8 bags that you travel with, and one was for your makeup,
my
and
pouches,
your pouches, your toiletries.
Yes, I have my pouches on this one, but I know that
yeah.
on my way back to the States, all of my organization is going to be thrown into disarray.
Oh no!
Because your security systems at your airports are different than ours, and I have my quart bag, and I know I'm going to have to throw things out to get all my liquids in. I cheat a little bit with the TSA.
Yeah.
But they don't need to know that.
No, they don't need to know. We'll scratch that bit.
Yeah.
So coming up to our last couple of questions. So we've had a few authors on who've mentioned about having a first book that they would never ever publish. You know, that's hidden away under many layers of sweaters in the bottom drawer somewhere. Do you have the same?
So I never finished a book before Red Queen. I never finished writing a book before Red Queen. I studied screenwriting in college, and I have finished features and television screenplays that I probably would never want to see the light of day. There are elements of them that I still enjoy, but they're definitely stories that were a product of me as a 20-year-old, which is something. And also, I wrote a lot of fan fiction growing up, and it is all scrubbed. You will not find it, and I'm glad that it's scrubbed and gone, because I think being judged by adult standards on something you wrote as a teenager, that's really rough. And I've seen authors run into that, where it's sort of like, oh, I don't think that's fair game.
Yes, yeah. Any particular fandoms?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I'm honestly shocked that no one has connected the dots between this book and a Lord of the Rings fanfiction I wrote that was very popular.
Oh, okay.
at one point in time.
I'm gonna have to get my murder board out.
No.
Upstairs. I'll pull it. I'll figure it out. And to finish, we always like to ask, what are you currently reading? What are you watching? And if you game, what are you playing?
Okay. I'm currently reading 2 books. I'm reading Sabaa Tahir's newest book, which has not come out yet. It's called Air, and it's not a sequel, but set within the same world as The Ember and the Ashes. And I've hit the part where Act 1 has ended, and she's like, "Here, we're gonna hit the gas now," and I'm like, "Ah!" Very good. And I love the world building there too, and I love her writing. And I'm also reading Fairy Tale by Stephen King, which we know who Stephen King is. And as far as watching, watching Love is Blind with my husband. And he's not allowed to watch the finale until I get back, and he's really mad about it because it'll be all done. Masters of the Air on Apple. I watch everything Bravo puts out. That's my palate cleanser. I'm a Housewives girly.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have another video.
We're gonna have it. Yes. So we do a Housewives night once a week, but it's a bit crazy at the moment. And it's me, Alan Hamilton, Laura Sebastian, Kate Keenan, who's over at Hot and stuff, and we meet once a week and we just bitch about Bravo. And it's
I would listen to that podcast.
We should.
So there's a lot of people, and there is a lot of judgment involved in women-centered reality television.
Yes.
I'm not saying anything revolutionary here, but when you look at the demos, the highest share of most educated and wealthiest women watch Bravo. So it's okay, other smart women are watching this. Why is that? And I'm really attracted to the psychology of it. When you look at it from a character standpoint, it's fascinating.
It's so interesting.
Yes.
I know my boyfriend will begrudgingly watch it. But then every so often he'll be like...
You'll see them out of the corner of the eye.
Didn't he break up with her? And then he'll be,
yes. My husband's gotten to the point where he can look at the screen and go, "This is New Jersey." And I'm like, yeah, you're right. That wasn't hard. They're all wearing cheetah print.
Yes. We've got unusual tans.
Yeah. Anyway, I find it to be a really good lunch break show. I will watch whatever I missed the night before, and that really helps me reset to go back to work.
It's very easy to switch off to, and I can imagine obviously with tours and things like that, it gets a little bit stressful.
It's the best thing to watch on tour as well, or on a plane when you just need to pass the time. What is your favorite right now?
Well, I think Vanderpump Rules obviously kind of hooked me back in after the last season. Yeah. And then trying to kind of make him some kind of hero in this season.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I'm a little behind on this one, but I'm just so sick of him.
It's very peculiar.
It's also hard to watch as someone who lives in LA and has yeah, like that's.
Have you had a pumptini?
I've been to Tom Tom.
Was it fine?
There are way better places to go.
Oh, yeah.
But and now they all live in the valley.
Yeah.
Which is now be cool. LA of me to be like, oh, they all live in the valley.
Yeah, it's been it's quite funny as well how I think the seasons kind of have peaks and troughs.
Yes.
And certainly when different housewives
however they edit these shows, some of them, oh my god, if you haven't watched the Miami reboot,
oh yes,
the new Miami, hands down the best right now.
Yeah.
I think.
The Larsa poisons.
Larsa. She's simultaneously so dumb, but also very calculating.
Yeah.
And I just started watching the new season of The Traitors, the US one.
Yes, yeah, I need to catch up with the
And I was shocked that I liked Larsa on Traitors. It was very weird for me because she was like actually quite sensible on Traitors. I'm behind on Traitors, but whatever.
Oh, God, that's.
I know.
I never thought I'd like her, but
and then I come back to Miami and you got her out here saying, "Oh, I don't know if you have cancer," and it's like.
Oh, that whole thing. Yeah, this is a whole other episode.
This is the Patreon version.
You got to pay extra for this content. And do you still game? Because you mentioned obviously.
Not often. If I do, it's Sims or I used to, and I haven't played it in a year and a half. It's one of those things where I don't want to get sucked back in. Because timing wise, if I'm on my computer, I want to be working, and if I'm not working, I shouldn't be looking at a screen because I look at screens too much and I've hurt my hands and all of that. But there is a game called Crusader Kings.
Okay.
That is like a turn-based. It's about as close to playing Game of Thrones as you actually can.
Okay.
It's like set during medieval times in Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. And instead of like actual just pure, my country's gonna conquer your country, it's dynastic warfare. So it's like, I'm gonna marry my son to your daughter, and their grandchild will be my direct heir and is gonna inherit all your land because I've assassinated your daughter's brother. And you're playing over centuries.
Oh wow.
It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
And you can play as like every religion down to like the count level. Like the level of detail that they've put into those games. The learning curve is really hard, but once you get it, it's shocking.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
that does sound incredible.
And you can play from like Iceland, and I think in the expansion packs you can go all the way to India.
Wow. Okay.
It's good. You can go on crusade. You can go on jihad. You can do everything.
That's crazy because I noticed recently. I think it's Fortnite have done like a Greek mythology patch. I have no interest in playing Fortnite, but then when I was just like. But now you can be Zeus and stuff. They were just like, oh.
Well, I played games like Pharaoh and Poseidon and Zeus and Caesar growing up, the city building games. I loved those, and I love like Age of Empires. Those were fun.
Have you played Hades?
No,
because you should so play Hades.
Oh,
and it's it's a small studio as well. But the whole thing about Hades is that you inevitably will die because it's a hard game, and then you go back to the start, and then the characters he'll start calling you out because you'll be like, we need to try better next time. Like he'll start saying things to you that like spur you on to be like, okay, I'm going to be better this time.
Oh my god, I don't need a game to judge me.
It's too much judgment already.
Yes.
Oh my god, but yeah, there's some amazing stuff out there. Okay. So yeah. Great. When you have some time off, whenever though.
Yes.
But we just want to say, obviously, thank you for joining us today and obviously signing a load more books for us. And if you check out our website or any of our stores, we'll have signed copies in there very soon. But we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.